Desperate aliens abduct two humans to use as breeding material and repopulate their planet. The ship descended through the atmosphere of Kepler 442b with mechanical precision. Its hull bore the scars of countless journeys across the void between stars. Inside the vessel, Commander Vex monitored the atmospheric readings with growing concern. The oxygen levels were dropping again, despite their best efforts to maintain the environmental systems. The bridge crew worked in tense silence. Their species, the Altani, had once numbered in the billions across 12 worlds. Now fewer than 10,000 remained scattered across 3 dying colonies. The plague had taken everything from them. Their fertility rates had plummeted to near zero over the past century. No new births had occurred in the last 15 years. Dr. Kira ran her 6-fingered hands over the genetic analysis console. The data streaming across her screen showed the same devastating results they had seen time and again. The Altani DNA was breaking down at the cellular level. Their reproductive systems were failing across the entire species. Without intervention, they would be extinct within 2 generations. The solution lay in the 3rd planet of a small yellow star system. Earth, the humans who inhabited that world, possessed something the Altani had lost: genetic diversity, adaptability, most importantly an almost reckless fertility rate that had allowed them to populate their entire planet despite numerous extinction events. Commander Vex had studied the human broadcasts for months. He watched their entertainment programs and analyzed their social structures. The species was primitive by Altani standards, but they showed remarkable resilience. They reproduced quickly, and their offspring survived in harsh conditions that would kill most civilized species. The plan was simple in concept, but complex in execution. They would take 2 specimens, 1 male and 1 female. The humans would be brought to the Altani homeworld, where their genetic material would be harvested and combined with Altani DNA. The resulting hybrid offspring would hopefully retain the human fertility advantage, while gaining Altani intelligence and longevity. The first target was a construction worker named Jack Morrison, 28 years old, with excellent physical condition and genetic markers that suggested strong reproductive potential. He worked alone on night shifts, which made extraction possible without witnesses. The second target was Dr. Emma Chen, a 26-year-old medical researcher whose intelligence scores and genetic profile made her an ideal candidate for the program. The abduction took place simultaneously across 2 continents. Jack was taken from a construction site in Denver, while Emma was extracted from her laboratory in Singapore. Both humans were unconscious within seconds of the blue light engulfing them. They awoke in sterile white chambers aboard the Altani vessel 3 days later. Jack pressed his palms against the transparent barrier that contained him. The walls hummed with energy and gave off a faint blue glow. He could see other chambers arranged in a circle around a central platform. In the chamber directly across from him, a woman in a white lab coat was examining her own prison with scientific curiosity. Emma had already cataloged everything she could observe about their situation. The gravity was slightly lighter than Earth normal. The air had a metallic taste that suggested artificial atmospheric processing. The walls appeared to be some form of crystalline material that conducted energy. Most disturbing of all were the alien figures that periodically appeared to observe them through the transparent barriers. The Altani stood nearly 7 feet tall, with elongated limbs and pale blue skin. Their faces were angular with large black eyes that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. They moved with fluid grace and communicated through a series of musical tones that made the human prisoners feel oddly calm despite their situation. Commander Vex entered the observation chamber and approached the human containers. He had studied their species extensively, but seeing them in person was different. They seemed smaller than he had expected, yet there was an intensity in their movements that suggested hidden strength. The male paced constantly, while the female remained still but alert. Dr. Kira joined him at the control panel. She activated the translation matrix that would allow communication with the specimens. The device had been programmed using thousands of hours of human broadcasts and should provide adequate linguistic interface. The translator crackled to life and filled the chamber with an artificial voice. Jack and Emma both looked up as the sound reached them. The words were in English, but carried an otherworldly quality that made them difficult to trust. Commander Vex spoke first. His musical tones were converted into flat mechanical English. He explained that they were the last hope for his dying species. The humans had been chosen because of their genetic compatibility and reproductive success. They would be treated well, but they could not return to Earth. Emma stepped forward and pressed her hands against the barrier. She demanded to know what exactly they planned to do with her and Jack. The translation of her words carried an edge of defiance that impressed the Altani commander. Most species they had encountered became docile when faced with superior technology. Dr. Kira explained the genetic program in clinical terms. The humans would provide reproductive material that would be combined with Altani DNA. The resulting offspring would be raised by volunteer Altani families. The humans themselves would live in comfort on the colony world, but would need to participate in the breeding program for the remainder of their lives. Jack slammed his fist against the barrier, hard enough to make it flicker. He shouted that he would never cooperate with their plans. Emma was more measured in her response, but equally firm in her refusal. Both humans made it clear that they would resist any attempt to use them as breeding stock. Commander Vex had anticipated this reaction. He activated a secondary system that filled the human chambers with a mild sedative gas. The humans fought against the effects, but eventually succumbed to unconsciousness. They would be taken to the colony world where the real work would begin. The Altani ship changed course toward their homeworld. In the cargo bay, 2 unconscious humans represented the last hope for an entire species. The irony was not lost on Commander Vex that his advanced civilization now depended on the primitive fertility of a species that had barely achieved space flight. The journey to the Altani homeworld took 6 weeks. During that time, the humans were kept in medical stasis while Dr. Kira ran extensive genetic analysis on their biological samples. The results were even more promising than they had hoped. Human DNA showed remarkable adaptability and resilience. Their reproductive systems were incredibly robust compared to the failing Altani biology. The colony world of Altania Prime appeared as a blue-green marble against the darkness of space. Once it had been home to 2 billion Altani citizens. Now vast cities stood empty, while the surviving population clustered in a few remaining settlements. The atmosphere was still breathable, but the planet felt hollow and abandoned. Jack and Emma were awakened in a medical facility that looked more like a luxury hotel than a laboratory. Their rooms were spacious and comfortable with large windows that looked out over an alien landscape. The gravity was comfortable and the air was clean. If not for the fact that they were prisoners, it might have been pleasant. Dr. Kira visited them daily to explain the situation and answer their questions. She was genuinely sympathetic to their plight, but remained firm about the necessity of the program. The Altani had tried every other option. Genetic therapy had failed. Artificial reproduction had produced only sterile offspring. The humans represented their last chance for survival. Emma demanded access to the Altani genetic research data. She was a molecular biologist and wanted to understand exactly what was happening to their species. Dr. Kira was reluctant at first, but eventually agreed that human cooperation might be more effective than coercion. The data was staggering in its scope and implications. the Altani had been slowly dying for over 3 centuries. Their genetic diversity had been eroded by their own success. They had eliminated disease and extended their lifespans, but in doing so had reduced their ability to adapt and reproduce. They were an evolutionary dead end. Emma spent weeks studying the research, while Jack explored the facility and tested their security systems. Both humans were looking for weaknesses they could exploit. The Altani guards were not particularly attentive, since they assumed the humans had nowhere to run on an alien world. The breakthrough came when Emma discovered a fundamental flaw in the Altani genetic program. They were approaching the problem from the wrong direction. Instead of trying to force human fertility into Altani genetics, they should be allowing Altani intelligence to enhance human adaptability. The solution was not to make Altani more human, but to make humans more Altani. She presented her findings to Dr. Kira during one of their daily meetings. The Altani scientist was initially skeptical, but as Emma explained the theoretical framework, she began to see the possibilities. The approach would still require human participation, but it would be less invasive and more likely to succeed. Commander Vex was called to review the new proposal. He listened carefully as Emma outlined her alternative approach. The humans would still need to remain on Altania Prime, but they would be partners in the research rather than subjects. Their offspring would be raised with both human and Altani cultural influences. Jack was suspicious of any compromise that still involved their captivity. He argued that they should be returned to Earth immediately, and that any cooperation should be voluntary. Emma was more pragmatic. She could see that the Altani were genuinely desperate, and that their technology could benefit humanity as well. The negotiations continued for several weeks. Emma worked closely with Dr. Kira to refine the genetic approach, while Jack explored the possibility of establishing communication with Earth. The Altani were initially resistant to any contact with the human homeworld, but eventually agreed to consider it. The first successful hybrid embryo was created 3 months after the humans arrived on Altania Prime. The genetic combination was stable and showed characteristics of both species. The embryo had human adaptability and Altani intelligence markers. Most importantly, it appeared to have functional reproductive systems. Emma insisted on being present for every stage of the development process. She wanted to ensure that the hybrid offspring would be treated well and given the opportunity to develop naturally. Jack worked on establishing a communication link with Earth that would allow regular contact with their families. The first hybrid child was born 6 months later. The infant appeared mostly human, but with subtle Altani characteristics. Its eyes were larger than normal, and its limbs were slightly elongated. The child was healthy and developed quickly, showing signs of enhanced intelligence and physical coordination. Dr. Kira was amazed by the results. The hybrid child showed none of the genetic defects that had plagued recent Altani births. Its DNA was stable, and its reproductive system was developing normally. The program appeared to be working exactly as Emma had predicted. More hybrid children were born over the following years. Each one was unique, but all showed the same pattern of human resilience combined with Altani capabilities. Children were raised in mixed communities where they learned both human and Altani customs. They were remarkably adaptable and showed no signs of the genetic deterioration that had doomed the pure Altani population. Emma and Jack eventually accepted their role as the parents of a new hybrid species. They were never allowed to return to Earth, but they were given significant freedom on Altania Prime. The Altani kept their promise to establish communication with Earth, and both humans were able to maintain contact with their families. The hybrid children grew up to be remarkable individuals. They combined human creativity and determination with Altani knowledge and technology. They were natural leaders and innovators who began to revitalize Altani society. The dying colonies became vibrant communities as the hybrid population grew. Commander Vex lived to see the first generation of hybrid children reach adulthood. They were everything the Altani had hoped for and more. They were fertile and intelligent, and possessed a drive for exploration that reminded him of the ancient Altani pioneers. The species would survive and perhaps even thrive because of the desperate decision to abduct 2 humans. The program expanded carefully over the following decades. More humans were brought to Altania Prime, but always as volunteers who understood the full implications of their choice. The hybrid population grew to several thousand individuals, who formed the core of a new civilization that blended the best aspects of both species. Emma became the director of the genetic research program and continued to refine the hybrid development process. Her work led to breakthroughs in longevity and disease resistance that benefited both humans and Altani. She never regretted her decision to cooperate with the program despite the circumstances of her arrival. Jack established the first interspecies communication network that allowed regular contact between Earth and Altania Prime. His engineering skills proved invaluable in maintaining the technology that kept the colonies functioning. He married an Altani woman and had several hybrid children of his own. The Altani species was no longer in danger of extinction. The hybrid population had proven that they could reproduce successfully, and their children showed no signs of genetic deterioration. The desperate gamble of abducting 2 humans had evolved into a partnership that benefited both species. The story of the human abduction became legend among the hybrid children. They understood that their existence was the result of a desperate act by a dying species, but they also knew that their parents had chosen to make the best of an impossible situation. They were proud of their dual heritage, and committed to honoring both their human and Altani ancestors. The galaxy was vast and full of dying species who had reached evolutionary dead ends. The success of the human-Altani hybrid program offered hope to other civilizations facing similar challenges. The desperate aliens who had abducted 2 humans had accidentally discovered a solution that could preserve countless species across the stars. Emma and Jack lived to see their great-grandchildren establish the first hybrid colony on a distant world. The new generation was ready to explore the galaxy and spread their unique combination of human adaptability and Altani wisdom to other worlds. They were no longer the products of a desperate abduction, but the founders of a new kind of civilization that could thrive anywhere in the universe.